Charlotte Brontë lived from 1816 to 1855. She wrote under the pseudonym Currer Bell. Though Jane Eyre was her first published work, it was later discovered that The Professor, published posthumously, was actually her first written work. Our story begins at Gateshead, where Jane Eyre, a young orphan, is being raised by her aunt, Mrs. Reed. Jane's childhood has not been a happy one, though, as she is bullied by her cousins and mistreated by her cruel aunt. Jane endures physical abuse from her cousins, mental abuse from her aunt, and emotional abuse through being locked in the haunted room of her deceased uncle. To survive this torment, Jane retreats to the books in the library. Jane is initially excited to be attending school, especially as it takes her away from Gateshead. However, the headmaster is a cruel and abusive man who deprives the students in order for his own family to enjoy luxury. Jane once again must endure extreme hardship in the form of basic physical survival. She bonds with Helen Burns, who is also an outcast in the school. They form a strong friendship, but when typhus sweeps through Lowood, Helen dies, leaving Jane all alone. Though in what seems like a small act of mercy, the headmaster also leaves, and the school conditions improve. Jane spends the next 6 years at Lowood as a student, before taking a teaching position at the school. After 2 years teaching, Jane accepts a position at Thornfield Hall as a governess to a little French girl named Adele. The master of the house and her employer, Mr. Rochester, is a dark, rough, and harshly spoken man. Over time, though, Jane finds herself falling for Mr. Rochester, but she is disheartened to find out that a beautiful and wealthy Miss Blanche Ingram will be coming to stay, and that it is expected that Mr. Rochester will marry her. Jane receives word that her aunt, Mrs. Reed, is ill on her deathbed, and returns to Gateshead to see her. Jane forgives her aunt for the mistreatment she received as a child. Upon returning to Thornfield, Jane finds out that Mr. Rochester has been pretending to be interested in Miss Ingram in order to make Jane jealous. Barely a month later, and it is their wedding day. Just when things looked like they were working out for Jane, it is revealed that Mr. Rochester is already married, and that his wife has been living locked in the tower of Thornfield Hall. Heartbroken, Jane runs away. With nowhere to go, she wanders through the wilderness, hungry, poor, and sleeping outdoors. She is found by a clergyman, St. John, or St. John, and his 2 sisters, and brought back to health as a guest in their home. They also help her to find work as a teacher in the local charity school. After some time, St. John reveals that he has tracked down Jane's family, and that her uncle died, leaving her a fortune of £20,000. St. John also reveals that they are in fact half cousins. Jane splits her inheritance with her cousins whom she has come to love. One night, Jane hears Mr. Rochester calling to her, and taking this as a sign, she returns to Thornfield Hall. Upon arriving back, she finds that it has been burnt to the ground by Mr. Rochester's wife, and that she also perished in the fire. Mr. Rochester lost his sight and a hand while rescuing his staff from the fire. Jane continues to Mr. Rochester's new, smaller residence, and upon rebuilding their relationship, they marry. Jane ends the story by saying that they have been blissfully married for 10 years and that Mr. Rochester regained the sight in one eye just in time to see their first child born. Though Jane endured many forms of torture, she survived them all. She could have given up or been a victim, bitter with pain. But she chose to forgive, which is necessary for survival. Many would say this book is a coming-of-age story, but I see it as a story of survival. Survival over the worst treatment and punishment a human being should ever have to endure. I hope that Jane inspires you to survive like she has inspired me. Thank you.